Stories of hope where hearts connect. Side effects may include joy, advocacy, and inclusion too. You're listening to The Inclusion Effect, sharing love, strength, and respect. Side effects may include joy, advocacy, and inclusion for me and you.
Hello and welcome to The Inclusion Effect. I'm Anna and I'm here to talk with guests and with all of you about disability advocacy, inclusion, the ups and downs of navigating a world that isn't always built for disability communities. And today I have a guest on from TikTok. Her name is Jade. Jade, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name is Jade Adkins, and I am the founder and owner of the Special Education Navigator. I'm a former special education teacher, and I've taught pretty much everything from early childhood all the way through transition, and now I own the Special Education Navigator, and I help families navigate the special education process.
That is amazing. Okay, and you're also a mom, right?
Yes, we have 4 kids total, so with 3 bonus babies and then our little guy. So we have 17, 14, 10, and 2 as of this coming Thursday.
Wow, I have a stepchild as well. That's a whole other thing. Yep, I get
Yeah.
ya. And you've got teenagers too, down to a toddler.
Oh,
Okay.
it's fun to experience all stages of parenting at one
Yeah.
time.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the Special Education Navigator?
Yeah, so formerly we were Cultivating Unique Minds. We are undergoing a big rebrand right now. I wanted something that really spoke more to the audience that I work with now. When I first started my business back in St. Louis about 5 years ago, I was still in the classroom, so the services I provided families looked a lot different. And now that I'm not in the classroom and I am directly able and have been for a couple of years to be able to provide families direct advocacy services and help them navigate the special education process, I decided it was kind of time for a rebrand, and I just felt that the Special Education Navigator really summed up what I do. And I truly have helped families across the country navigate the special education process, no matter if they're in the beginning, the middle, or if they're towards the end and their child is getting ready to transition into kind of a post-secondary or adult care type of situation. We have the IEP Compass and the IEP Navigation Master Map. And so I have everything from short little tidbit course to like direct one-on-one support with families. And so usually given any time, I have about 10 clients that I'm helping navigate the process in some way, shape, or form. I think a lot of people think advocate and they think something bad must have happened for a family to get an advocate. And that's what I was taught when I was a brand new baby teacher. And that is not always the case. I would say about 80% of my clients are just trying to figure out what is in their child's IEP, what could be in there, what should be in there, and just see if their child is getting the supports that even make sense for them and aren't just what the school is doing because the school has always done that. So I work really hard with the school teams, assuming there's not already been some contention, and try to be as collaborative as possible. I have a lot of hard conversations with families that like, no, your child can't bring a unicorn to school. The school can't provide a unicorn, but I do think that we should have more time in general education, or we should have more support in this area or less support in this area based on what I'm seeing and what you're telling me. And so I work really hard to get the school teams buy-in too and help everybody kind of see what is possible and then what's kind of just not going to happen. And then if there is contention, obviously, those cases are unique and whatever's going on. But again, trying to be collaborative and prevent it from going any farther.
Yeah.
I've only had to do mediation a handful of times in the last few years, and I think mediation's been a great tool. One of them was actually about inclusion. So, I've been successful with mediation and avoided due process. So,
That's
yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So just to kind of summarize, you really help smooth over the communication between the school and the parents, and help them kind of understand the IEP, and then help the school understand where the parents are coming from as well, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Invaluable. That is such a great service. It's definitely needed. My daughter, who has Down syndrome, starts preschool tomorrow. It's the first day of school. And we've had so many meetings. She's got, I thought, everything she needed. She has a one-on-one aide. She's got everything she needs. They have all kinds of sensory stuff for her. She gets her own labeled binkies, even though they're not supposed to have binkies in their class because that's a self-soothing
Yeah.
thing, all this stuff. And then today I found out that they didn't have an aid set up for the busing. So we'll be driving her for at least the next week, which is
Oh,
okay. But she
yeah.
can't get on that bus without an aid.
No, no. Is your
Hopefully,
daughter,
oh, go ahead.
verbal? Is she speaking, or does she use
Totally
a
nonverbal.
does she
She
use a
has an
device?
AAC.
Okay.
She's not very
Wonderful.
good at it. She's pretty good at sign language, but
Please.
her teachers and aides don't know her yet, and a lot of them are very similar looking if you aren't familiar with them.
It's her. Yeah, yeah.
So they'll get used to her communication, but it'll take a bit.
That's awesome. And hopefully being
Yeah,
in a structured setting, maybe the AAC as she grows will come.
we're hoping. Yeah.
I loved using AAC devices. I had
Amazing.
a
Yeah.
self-contained elementary classroom, and that was my first like real exposure to them, and 90% of my kids had them.
That's
And it's
amazing.
amazing what can happen.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We're hoping that she really kind of grows into using it this year, because so far she's only been at home with her dad and I and her grandparents. And so we all know what she wants when she makes a certain grunt,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So what would you say is kind of the biggest, or one of the biggest, I guess I'm putting you on the spot here, but challenges that parents face when navigating IEPs and the school system? What's something that comes up a lot?
Overwhelm and feeling unheard and not understanding the jargon.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
it's very easy for us as professionals. So, and I should also backtrack. I have sat on both sides of the IEP table. When I was
Yeah.
in college, I was so lucky to be a nanny for a young man on the autism spectrum. His mom knew I was going to school to be a special ed teacher, so she let me come to any meetings that I was available to go to. And so having that experience too, and when I was in the classroom being the teacher that would shake trees until the right thing was done, um, a lot of times parents, I should say, as professionals, we sit in these meetings, we talk in jargon, we talk in acronyms, we have little side conversations that we don't realize we're having between professionals when the parents are like, what are you talking about? Like,
Right.
we're trying to figure out little things, and I don't mean this against educators at all. I just mean it's the reality of the meeting, and also the reality of the meeting is a lot of times inherently negative because the IEP is a document that is about deficits. Now,
Yes.
are there sections in there where we should be talking about positives? Absolutely. But the design of it is inherently negative, and I think parents who are walking into that meeting for the first time may not realize that's what's going to happen, and you now have 10 people telling you everything your child can't do.
Yes.
And as
Very
parents,
hard to hear.
it is, and we see our children doing things that other people don't, right? Like home and school are two different places,
Hmm.
and so it's very hard. And so a lot of times when parents reach out to me, the most common things I hear are I don't understand the process. Nobody explained it to me. I'm frustrated. I feel unheard. And um I don't know. I don't understand what's going on because everybody's talking in a language that I know nothing about. And I mean people who we have deemed in society as intelligent people, doctors, lawyers. It does not matter your schooling if you are not in this space and or you don't dive into this space to learn. And sometimes, IEPs are thrown on parents kind of haphazardly, like, hey, we're recognizing these issues with your kid. Oh, well, I don't see those at home. Well, we have a meeting scheduled. We want to evaluate
Oh,
And it's not like this long drawn out process.
yes.
Sometimes I see kiddos moving from smaller schools to bigger schools, that the smaller schools were able to mitigate it in the classroom. And it was a small town and nobody wanted to rock the boat. Then they moved to a bit bigger school and the kid is struggling, but the parent is saying, "Oh, well, it's the move, it's the bigger school." And the teachers are like, "No, we have a problem." So then this parent is thrown into the deep end. And so a lot of times I feel like the jargon, the language, the overwhelm, nobody's explaining the process. That was one of the things that was frustrating to me as a teacher in the classroom. I learned very quickly that the parents that I was working closely with, especially when I had a self-contained classroom, I talked to those parents every day. They didn't realize the process of what was happening. Like they just knew they went to an IEP meeting every year. They didn't
Right.
know they could call another one. They didn't know that if they disagreed, they had rights. And that became kind of my fire for working towards getting out of the classroom to help parents on the other side. And that's
Okay.
not that I'm against teachers. I'm not against schools. I think teachers are fabulous. I think, my probably biggest flaw is I'm always going to assume everybody is going to do the right thing until they don't. So I truly just think that the way that we structure schools and teacher prep programs, teachers are often just following what they know and what's been done. And we don't realize that parents need to be told their rights and what other options there might be, instead of getting so pigeonholed into, well, these are the only things we've only ever had: a self-contained classroom, a resource classroom, pull out for this, push in for that. We don't, thinking outside the box, I think, can be really hard in
Yeah.
some buildings or districts. Just like a lot of us, change is hard
Yeah.
for a lot of people. But yeah, I would say those are kind of the most common challenges that when people reach out
Yeah.
to me with.
That absolutely makes sense. And that is such, like I said, an invaluable service you're providing. It really is so complicated. You don't know what you don't know. Like,
Exactly.
you really don't. As a parent, we can do all the Googling we want, we can do all the research we want. We still don't work in that process, and we still don't see it from start to finish every year, multiple times a year with all the kids and everything. So, what would you say is one thing? Like, if there's one key thing you wish parents knew about IEPs, IEP meetings, the IEP process, what would you say that is? I
Okay.
know, big question.
Yeah. So I'm gonna do two because I think they go hand in hand. So I think I want parents to know they have rights under the federal law, but the federal law also recognizes that the parent is 50% of the IEP team. And I think a lot of times when parents get in the meeting and you have 10 people looking at you telling you they can't do what you want them to do, when you're not asking for anything out of the normal, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I think parents think that they're one, maybe two people, mom and dad, mom and mom, whoever is there, that they're only a small fraction of the team. When in reality, if you look at past case law, you look at the way IDEA defines parental involvement, IDEA leans heavily on parental involvement and sees the parent as half the team. So in reality, if a parent doesn't agree with what's going on, that should be a major red flag to the team, depending on the situation. But most of the time, that should be a big red flag
Okay,
to the
yeah.
team because there's either a miscommunication, a misunderstanding, or something is wrong. And so I think I really want parents to know they have rights. You can find them on IDEA, you can find them. I think I still have a blog post about them. And then you are half of the IEP team.
That's great to know. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay.
Yep.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, I'm in Oregon, and until my child starts elementary school, she has what's called an IFSP, which is a family. It's very similar, except it's for the whole family, just because she's a toddler.
Yeah.
I'm sure your state has something similar. I don't know, but I don't think I realized that. And I'm a yapper. I do a lot of research before going to these meetings, and I still did not realize that my input is within reason, equal
Yeah,
to
it is.
the educators. So that's great to know. Okay. Okay. And let's see. What is something that really helps when parents are getting ready to go to IEP meetings? What's something that really helps make them go smoothly? What's something that they should know going into it? Is it their child's strengths, their child's weaknesses, things like that? Is it knowing what they need to succeed? Is it identifying problems at home? What's like something that's really important to be ready to talk about going into an IEP meeting?
Ready to talk about. So I think, again, kind of going back to like, be prepared to hear the negative. That's the structure, right? So hear out what the school staff is saying, but also don't be afraid to say, well, I've seen him do that at home. Because again, school and home are different. The kiddo
Mm-hmm.
that I nannied, I was just in pure shock when they told me he washed his hands all by himself at school, when at home it was like pulling teeth. And I went home and I picked him up from school that day and I
Oh.
said, I heard that you wash your hands at school all by
Oh.
yourself. And he just looked at me like a deer in headlights. I said,
It's
I want you to go
amazing.
show me. Go show me now.
I'm on
If
to
you
you.
want to go. And he was like, and he was a stinker. And so I could just see like, he was like, oh man, she caught me. So like, I think having that open dialogue, be prepared and be willing to have that open dialogue with the school team. And then definitely, I think, share your concerns. As a parent, what are your concerns? A lot of times, I remember when I was still in the classroom, I would ask parents, oh, I don't have any concerns. I'm like, your child gets suspended for 7 days. The next
Yes.
suspension, we're going to have you don't have any concerns. like, like we can
Wild.
be real here. Like, we can be real here. I'm not judging you. Like, I genuinely, one, have to know for this legal document, but two, I want to know because, if parents came to me and they're like, we're really concerned that he's never going to know his colors or he's never going to recognize his name. I'm like, oh, well, like, I, as a teacher, can provide you a few activities. I can send home labels with his name and you can put them everywhere that he has stuff. Like, I for me, I was willing to provide those things to the families, to the students that I taught, because if they could practice that at home, it made my job in the classroom so much easier. Now, did I
Yeah.
expect parents to like sit down and give a whole lesson? No. But integrating it into their day was going to benefit all of us.
Absolutely.
And so
Yes.
parents sharing their concerns, I think in that regard is huge, but it's also huge for if there's a problem later. One of the things I teach all the parents that I work with is we write out a solid parental concerns letter. Sometimes it's a full paragraph, sometimes it's a full page. But writing out exactly your concerns so when you go in, you can articulate them
Mm-hmm.
is super important. The same with any like questions you have. I have a whole training on parents creating an IEP binder and then how to use the IEP binder so they can be prepared. Because when you sit there and 10 people are spouting off different things, it can be overwhelming,
Yes.
much less when you're thinking about all the other things you have to do in your life as a parent or a human in general.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
I got
It
to get
is
back to work, my
overwhelming.
lunch hour is about to end, like whatever it is. Being prepared with a list of questions, your list of concerns, um, things you need them to explain to you. That is the biggest tip I have for parents walking into an IEP meeting or an
That's
evaluation meeting, whatever it is.
that's amazing, and also kind of makes me feel less anal about preparedness because I actually have for my daughter a medical binder that we take to all
Yes.
appointments, and then again, it's an IFSP binder at this point,
Yeah.
but in a couple years for kindergarten it'll be an IEP binder. So that is, I'm so glad that I'm on the right track. That's great to
You are.
hear.
Yeah. I
That's so great to hear.
I'm partnered with a local agency and they have sponsored me doing several workshops around town where I live
Amazing.
at. And one of our most popular ones was the IEP binder workshop, where I gave them all of the resources I give my clients, and then I was able to walk them through building their binder. They were able to bring their paperwork and had dedicated time to actually sit down and put that binder together and walk out
Okay.
with that IEP binder. And I have still a couple clients from that workshop, and they still are like so thankful that they have everything together when they need to pull it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if it's just for their own, like, oh, what did that say in there? Or,
Yeah,
the next meeting is coming up and they want to go back and look.
absolutely.
Definitely,
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
great way to be prepared and be able to, I don't want to say like ground yourself for the meeting, but kind of in a way. Like when you go in, all your stuff is right here. You're not rifling through. You're not dependent upon if they have it. You know that you have everything you need.
That absolutely makes sense. Okay. And if you said earlier, sometimes parents are kind of caught off guard, they don't realize that their kids
Yeah.
might need an IEP. If that's the case, what do you recommend going into that first IEP meeting? So, for example, Addie's had Down syndrome since she was born. That's not surprising. That extra chromosome's not going anywhere. But say somebody finds out their child might, I don't know, have ADHD is a common thing, a
That's
common
a common
topic.
one. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. What do you think that parent should do to prepare for that case?
Would have the parent sit down and really come up with questions, or maybe even the question, like, how did we get here? What did you all
Yeah.
see? What are you guys seeing at school that is leading you to this? This is actually a very lively scenario in my life right now. So it's like, um, just asking, and well, actually, the parent should reflect first. Reflect first. What do they know about ADHD? Maybe do a little research, because I think our view of ADHD has really shifted over the last few years, especially if we're talking about
Yes.
ADHD in females.
Yes.
Um, Reflect themselves, do a little research, and then at the meeting, really ask, like, what are you guys seeing here? Because I'm caught off guard. I think it's really important if parents are like upfront, because if educators know parents are caught off guard, I think they will do a better job explaining, and maybe even a little like being a little softer about it. Um, because those are hard conversations to have. I mean,
Yes.
if I think about the amount of hard conversations I've had in the last 10 or 12 years of doing this, um, I had much harder conversations with parents when I was in the classroom versus out of the classroom. And a lot of those revolve around not knowing their child was struggling, or like if their child behavior was more severe at school than they realized and nobody had told them until me.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so I think just parents being able to reflect, and then being able to go in and be kind of honest, like, I'm really caught off guard. Can you paint me a picture of how we got here, because I haven't heard any of this before.
Okay.
Because
So,
it's tough.
yeah, it's very tough. Yeah. So, kind of piggybacking off of that, what do you think good communication between a parent with a child with extra needs and a teacher looks like? And that probably does vary based on age. I
Yeah.
know I've warned all of Addie's preschool teachers, aides, therapists, the nurse, everything. I'm in a group chat with them. Like I told them I'm going to be on them and they expect
Yeah.
that. But when we're moving into elementary school, what do you think that really looks like? How do you facilitate that as a teacher?
I think it looks different based on the child's needs. So when I was at a resource level teacher, I maybe talk to my students' parents every other month. And some parents, I mean, some parents didn't answer, but I
Yeah.
mean, like, some kiddos were genuinely great kiddos. They just needed some extra help. All my kiddos were great kiddos, but they just
Of
needed a
course.
little extra help, but there were no behaviors. So I wasn't calling to like forewarn them, like, hey, he was in the principal's office. I'm just giving you a heads up. I genuinely, it was like, hey, like, she's doing great. I don't know what
Yeah.
else to do. I just need to schedule her IEP. Um, so some kiddos and that was middle school too. So there's a little less communication middle school, as opposed to when I had an elementary self-contained program. You know, those parents had my personal cell phone number. As an educator, do not recommend, do not do that. However, now there's great things like Google Voice,
Yes.
Class Dojo, Remind, whatever, some way that you can communicate with parents that's very similar to texting, right? Um, and so when I had an elementary self-contained classroom, not only did those parents have a way to communicate with me like instantly, I had the same, and we had that kind of a mutual respect of if you text me after I'm off of work, I'm probably not going to respond until the morning, but I'll
Totally fair.
respond to you. But I'll respond to you, right? Like, um, and then I also used a communication sheet because, like I said, a lot of my kiddos were nonverbal. They were AAC users and they were just getting introduced to AAC. So I had a communication sheet and it was a lot of smiley faces and pictures. And so as they got older, the students could help me fill it out or the paraprofessional, whoever was doing it. And that went home every day. So parents had some kind of insight onto what their kiddo was doing. Because I know for me now, and I didn't realize this then, but now having a toddler who can only tell me little bits and pieces
Yeah.
about what he did. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. And thankfully, he goes to a small in home daycare that I can text her and be like, hey, this doesn't make sense. And she can kind of fill in the gaps. But like a child who is limited verbal, limited speaking, non speaking, whatever the case might be, not knowing what they're doing for 8 hours out of their day is really tough. Like,
Yes.
even when my son was an infant and I knew all he was doing was rolling back and forth and drinking his bottles and sleeping, it's still really hard. And I can't imagine as they get older how much harder that would be because you want to know about the stuff they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think it's important, especially for teachers who work with a population who is limited speaking, gestalt language processors whose language is a little bit different and may not make sense to an outsider, kiddos with echolalia who use AAC devices, sign language, whatever it might be. I think it's really important for those educators and parents to come up with some kind of communication process, whether it be a communication journal, a communication book, a communication sheet, or a daily check-in or weekly check-in on Class Dojo or email or whatever. It has to work for both parties. But I really think it's important that the educators on those teams understand the gravity that weighs on us as parents
Yes.
when you don't know what your child is doing for 7.5 hours a day.
It's terrifying.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes we get into like our routines as educators, and I need those educators to come out for a second and really think about what that would be like, because I think if they did, they would kind of have an OSHIT moment and like really rethink their stance on communication, or parents who they might feel like over communicate or whatever. I think they
Yeah.
would realize why that is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I so appreciate your perspective because, yeah, you're coming at it from both sides. You know what happens on the school side, you know what it's like to have that be your job day in and day out, and you're also a parent, and you also understand from that side that we are sending a piece of ourselves out into the world, and they don't look how the world expects them to look. They don't act, think, talk, communicate, whatever, how the world expects them to, and it's really scary.
It
It really
is.
is a lot of trust and faith in that school, teacher, whatever the program is. Yeah, it is. Okay. Let's see. What changes would you like to see in how schools support disabled students? What do you think that they could do better at differently? Not necessarily better, but just differently, I guess.
Yeah. I wish that we would, and this is something I did in the last public school that I was at, really stay open-minded to inclusion opportunities. I mean, and I'm not just saying this because of your podcast. I genuinely, one of my goals when I was at my last public school was getting the school community involved with my students. And so whether that be them going in for a science experiment that was just hands-on,
Yeah.
maybe the content wasn't appropriate right then, but for them to get that opportunity to be hands-on, for them to be involved in classroom parties, field trips with safety concerns in mind, and just really be a part of the school community. That was something the last public school I was at really struggled with, and I tried really hard to do disability inclusion activities to foster that. And I think that instead of thinking like, oh, they're a sped student, oh, this, I think getting away from that connotation and being like, they're a such and such elementary student and we need to involve them in this, and that is huge. And I know
Yeah.
for me, and what it was, this was the most frustrating thing. And I know it's a technical thing, but because they were with me, 90% of the week, I was their primary teacher. So they were not on any other class list. So if a class party happened, those teachers had to make a specific effort to put my kids on their list for whatever it might be.
I
And
see.
that was always so frustrating and so hard to me because teachers are busy. I don't think anybody intentionally left my kids off of there. But it took a lot of me fighting and throwing my own fits to get my kids on those class lists because they did belong on those class lists.
Yeah.
While yes, I was responsible for their grades and their goals and their IEPs and their day-to-day learning, they also needed another home classroom place for parties and field trips and specials and lunch and all of the things. And so I just want schools to find more opportunities for inclusion for all kiddos, no matter their ability. There's always an opportunity for inclusion,
Yeah.
whether it's 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 50 minutes. There's always an opportunity for inclusion in a child's day.
Yes, I love that. Ugh, thank you for fighting for that. I'm
It takes
sure
a
that
lot.
was so important to those kids. I know they appreciated it.
And honestly, the best part was seeing how the general education population, those kiddos responded
Yeah.
because it helped them understand. There's a book called Why Is He Doing That? And it
I
was
know the
written.
book. I own it.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. It's written by a sister whose brother has autism and he
Yes.
flaps his arms and has lots of different stems. And that's what she talks about in the book. And I read that to any class that would let me come in. I read it aloud. And one of my students who had autism went with me. He was very social, very social. And he was sitting there listening. And so some of his friends, because he was Mr. Popular, like the kids loved him. Some of the kids kind of, you could see the puzzle, like you could see the wheels turning. And then there was another kid in the same grade who had some additional challenges behaviorally. And at times you could be found in the hallway and he would be struggling. And so some of the kids would say, oh, that's why he does X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Oh, and like they weren't judging, they didn't care. They just
Yeah.
now they understood.
Yes, and that's
And so
so
the
important.
next time they saw that, they just went on by, no big deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so
So
important. I
yeah.
always say, teach your kid about my kid. Like,
Yeah.
they're not going to learn about disabilities if they aren't exposed to them. I always encourage people to ask. Addie has a feeding tube. She used to have a G-tube on her face, and I've always encouraged kids to ask. And, sometimes they say it a little bit, maybe it could be a little bit more eloquently, why does she look weird? And then I'll say, well, she does look different. You're right. And here's why. And then they'll know going forward. I think that's amazing that you go about it that way. It's so important.
That was
Yeah,
probably the
exposure.
highlight of my career, if I'm being honest. That was the best part.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. Well, we've got to wrap things up. You and I both have other things to do. But how about to end this? What is one thing that you have either that your students have taught you or that your new career has taught you? What's like one thing you really hold near and dear that you've learned from your career? Your amazing and very important career, by the way.
Oh man,
I know.
that's tough. I feel like I learned so much from the kids. I don't know that there's a lot that I've learned now. They really taught me more than I could ever teach anybody else, I think. I think it's one of those, it's the simple things, right? Like finding joy in the simple things. Especially as an adult, we're
Yeah.
rushing, we're constantly like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, like, and I really find myself with the kiddos that I've worked with in the past, the simple things, like
Yeah.
enjoy the simple things, don't overcomplicate, so when I take that into when I'm talking to schools, like we don't have to overcomplicate this, like we just have to do what's right and best for the kid. And I know it sounds so silly, but really, like it's the simple things, and to kind of slow down.
Yeah.
I think in another lifetime, if I wasn't in this profession, um I would be a true corporate workaholic. And so I think having worked with and encountered the individuals that I've been so lucky to work with, that really just enjoying the simple things and not overcomplicating what you don't have to overcomplicate.
Yeah, that's amazing. Okay, I love that. I think that's great advice. We could all take that, enjoy things day by day, appreciate all the milestones and the inch stones, celebrate our kids, exactly who they are. Just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, and you bring up one great last point is success and milestones look different for everybody, and
yes.
that's okay. So maybe that's the bigger piece.
Ah,
That
they go
maybe
hand
that's
in
the
hand.
they do. And I always try to tell parents that
Yeah.
success and milestones look different, and that's okay.
Yes, yeah, I love that. I think that's so important. So thank you so much, Jade. Let's see. So do you have anything that you want to plug, your TikTok, your business, a website, anything like that?
Yeah, so you can find us at the specialeducationnavigator.com. I will send you the link to put in the show notes and stuff.
Perfect.
And our IEP Compass toolkit, which is where we put together the binder. You get all the resources for your binders. So acronym guide, special education process guide, visuals for the process, my outline for parent concern letters, and all of that stuff. That's kind of our next big workshop that we're doing virtually. So
Amazing.
anybody in the country can
It is
access it.
virtual?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great to
Mhm.
know.
Yep.
Amazing. Okay, thank you so much. And for everybody listening, go ahead and follow my podcast. Go ahead and give me 5 stars, please. Go ahead and follow me on TikTok at The Inclusion Effect and at Up Life of Addie. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at The Inclusion Effect. I swear I'll start posting there eventually. And thank you so much.